Asian Unity, Stopping Asian Hate. A History of Hate Against Asians in the U.S. Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Chinese railroad laborers played a crucial role in the completion of the United States' first transcontinental railroad in 1869. Despite their significant contributions, these workers faced numerous challenges, including harsh working conditions, dangerous tasks, lower wages compared to their white counterparts, and widespread mistreatment. Instead of being rewarded for their efforts, the U.S. government enacted the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which maliciously targeted Chinese laborers. Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. This malicious act represented a significant shift in U.S. immigration policy, being the first federal law to impose comprehensive restrictions on a specific ethnic group. Enacted on May 6, 1882, it responded to the growing anti-Chinese sentiment driven by economic concerns. Local white workers perceived Chinese laborers, who worked longer hours for lower wages, as direct competitors, prompting feelings of resentment and scapegoating. Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Consequently, Chinese Americans were unjustly blamed for job losses, prompting discriminatory measures that institutionalized bias against them. This law remained in effect for over 60 years, with complete repeal occurring only in 1943. Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. As we reflect on the scapegoating of the Chinese, we may wonder, is the glass half full or half empty for the next century? Let's delve into this question together by exploring the journey from 1882 to the modern 21st century. Incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, 1942. During World War II, the U.S. government forcibly removed approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans from their homes and detained them in internment camps across the nation. This action stemmed from racial prejudice, as Japanese Americans were unjustly blamed for the war. Incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, 1942. Under President Franklin D. Roosevelt's administration, which was predominantly composed of white males, Japanese American families experienced forced separation and relocation to remote internment camps characterized by harsh living conditions. In stark contrast, white German Americans were not subjected to widespread internment or systematic incarceration. This disparity underscores the racial biases of the era and illuminates the differences in treatment between white and non-white Americans. Such inequalities prompt a crucial question: is the concept of yellow peril merely a hypothetical notion, or is it rooted in reality? Incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, 1942. As a result, Japanese Americans lost their homes, businesses, and personal possessions, leading to profound psychological trauma and significant financial hardship. Even after the war, those interned continued to face stigma and discrimination, which hindered their efforts to rebuild their lives. The killing of Vincent Chin in Michigan, 1982. Vincent Chin, a Chinese American, was murdered in 1982 in Detroit, Michigan, in a case that became pivotal for Asian American civil rights. Chin was attacked and beaten to death by two white men, Ronald Evans and Michael Nitz, who mistakenly believed he was Japanese and blamed him for challenges facing the U.S. auto industry. This act of racial violence and the subsequent lenient sentencing of the perpetrators exposed deep flaws in the legal system's ability to address hate crimes. The killing of Vincent Chin in Michigan, 1982. The injustice sparked outrage and galvanized Asian American communities to advocate for justice and increase awareness about racial discrimination. Chin's case highlighted the dangers of scapegoating and led to greater activism aimed at combating anti-Asian hate. His legacy continues to serve as a reminder of the ongoing challenges of racism and violence faced by Asian Americans. Intermission. A review of the past century reveals a persistent pattern of scapegoating Asian Americans in the United States, where they have often been labeled as perpetual foreigners and threats. This historical context sets the stage for examining whether perceptions and treatment of Asian Americans have improved in the 21st century. 2012 U.S. government's wrongful criminal charges against the Sung family. In the aftermath of the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis, the U.S. government sought scapegoats to ease public unrest. Echoing ancient practices of atonement, it targeted the Sung family, Chinese Americans who owned Abacus Federal Savings Bank in New York City's Chinatown. 2012 U.S. government's wrongful criminal charges against the Sung family. In 2012, Abacus faced 184 criminal charges linked to the financial crisis. After a lengthy 3-year legal battle, the Sung family was acquitted in 2015, enduring legal fees of about $10 million. While they triumphed, the government never apologized for the injustices the family faced. Furthermore, there is no obligation for the government to reimburse legal costs when charges are dropped, meaning the $10 million loss represented a lifetime of savings for the Sungs. This situation raises a crucial question. Would a typical Asian American small business owner risk their entire life savings to fight the government in court, or would they feel pressured to plead guilty? 2012 U.S. government's wrongful criminal charges against the Sung family. Additionally, this case highlights serious concerns about bias in the prosecution of minority-owned businesses. Notably, Abacus was the only financial institution charged in connection with the subprime crisis, raising questions about why larger banks, which played significant roles in the crisis, were not similarly prosecuted. This discrepancy exposes systemic racism and emphasizes the urgent need for fair treatment under the law. 2012 U.S. government's wrongful criminal charges against the Sung family. The PBS documentary Small Enough to Jail, aired in 2017 as part of the Frontline series, explores these issues, shedding light on the systemic racism and scapegoating faced by the Chinese American community, among other related concerns. 2020. China virus rhetoric and its consequences. In 2020, various U.S. officials, including President Donald Trump, referred to COVID-19 as the China virus. This language scapegoated China and fueled anti-Asian sentiment, increasing racism and xenophobia towards Asian Americans. Such rhetoric was widely perceived as an attempt to deflect blame for the pandemic. Research indicates that terms like China virus can have serious real-world effects, contributing to a significant rise in hate crimes and discrimination against Asian communities. The phrase perpetuates harmful stereotypes, suggesting that Chinese people are inherently unclean, and has been associated with instances of violence against Asians. Furthermore, we must consider whether the concept of yellow peril is merely hypothetical or a genuine reality. Next, let's examine the public response in the U.S. Atlanta spa shootings, March 16, 2021. In 2021, the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated scapegoating against the Chinese American community, leading to a significant increase in hate crimes against Asians. For example, on March 16, 2021, a tragic shooting spree at 3 massage parlors in Atlanta, Georgia, left 8 people dead, 6 of whom were of Asian descent. The shooter, Robert Aaron Long, white male, was arrested shortly after the attack. These shootings ignited national outrage and intensified discussions surrounding the alarming rise in anti-Asian hate crimes throughout the pandemic. Atlanta spa shootings, March 16, 2021. The attacks highlighted systemic racism and xenophobia, shining a spotlight on the discrimination faced by Asian Americans. In response, community leaders and organizations called for increased advocacy, support, and new measures to combat hate crimes. They emphasized the importance of solidarity and awareness to effectively address these critical issues and to support affected individuals and families. Another Asian hate crime in New York City, 2021. In 2021, the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated scapegoating against the Chinese American community, leading to a significant increase in hate crimes against Asians. Another example, in 2021, 51-year-old Jared Powell pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter as a hate crime in the New York State Supreme Court for the fatal beating of 61-year-old Yao Pen Ma. Another Asian hate crime in New York City, 2021. Ma tragically succumbed to his injuries after spending over 8 months in a coma. As a result, Powell received a sentence of 22 years in state prison. This unprovoked attack not only led to a heartbreaking loss of life but also intensified fear and insecurity within the Asian American and Pacific Islander (AAPI) community in New York. Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Source of data. Incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, 1942. Source of data. The killing of Vincent Chin in Michigan, 1982. Source of data. 2012 U.S. government's wrongful criminal charges against the Sung family. Source of data. 2020, China virus rhetoric and its consequences. Source of data. Atlanta spa shootings, March 16, 2021, source of data. Another Asian hate crime in New York City, 2021, source of data. About shareholder activisms /corpgov.law.harvard.edu/2024/07/14/ The Director's Guide to Shareholder Activism. 3/https://executiveducatine.wharton.upenn.edu/for-individuals/all-program/hedge-fund-shareholder-activism. W8 Tax Haven LLC is a family office located in New York City that collaborates with other W8 family offices to achieve shared goals. As activists, we focus on addressing pressing social issues, particularly the fight against Asian hate, through socially responsible investing and initiatives that support Asian Americans. By leveraging our collective W8 capital, we engage in shareholder activism, advocating for sustainable practices through proactive ownership and voting. We firmly believe that finance and capitalism can create a positive impact on society. Our aspiration is for future generations of Asian Americans to grow up free from the threat of Asian hate in the United States. https://w8taxhaven.com. contact@w8taxhaven.com. To ignore evil is to become accomplice to it. Martin Luther King, Jr. Don't be evil, Google's founding motto in 2000. However, after 18 years, this motto was removed in 2018. This change reflects a departure from the United States' founding principles, which were based on ideals like equality and integrity. Unfortunately, these original tenets have diverged over time.